Hello.
Hey,
It's Friday again. Although we don't usually record on Friday, but nonetheless, we do usually record Biweeklycast, and this is Biweeklycast number 43. Host is still here. I'm Dima Malenko.
I'm Slava. Today we're going to
We
talk
ha-
about EdTech Club.
I'm super intrigued about the topic because I feel like reading the notes, I understood very little about what's going on. So I'm very curious to dig deeper with you into the topic. Sounds
But before we
intriguing.
do that, there is a follow-up.
Right. The last time we talked about the book, right? How minds change, and I did have a whole bunch of different, like, more notes of thoughts that the book or the ideas there inspired in me, and like the connection. So I drew. We didn't have a chance to talk about all of them, but one thing in particular kind of stuck with me was that idea that with those self-referential interviews, when they try to reflect the thoughts or rationalization back on the interviewee, to dislodge their beliefs and attitudes. I think it's, in general, in principle, it feels to me it's not too dissimilar how we shake jars to compact stuff in the jar. But with that, it also, so you have, in order to change something, and then move from one stable state to another stable state, you necessarily have to go through a transition where the state is unstable, right? And it is almost a precondition of changing the state. And this is what happens when we shake the jar to compact it. But I think that there is also an interesting analogy that it works well if the jar is closed, so you put constraints on what happens, because if the jar is open and you shake it, it very well, maybe some of the stuff in the jar will fall out all over the place, and it would be quite the opposite of the effect you're trying to achieve. And kind of in general, this topic of kind of chaotic transitions and stuff like that is very near and dear to my heart. So I could not could not help myself but mention it now as a follow-up, at least.
That's really interesting because I totally moved on from the book, and this morning I've already finished our next book, Start a Villain.
But you're so fast.
Well, I had a lot of walking time this week. It's just good weather.
That's your
And
story.
by the way, in September, the next book from the Bobbyverse is coming as well on Audible.
Cool stuff. Cool
Yep.
stuff. As sometimes you might be surprised by that. I do go back to the Bobbyverse book and with some meta thoughts about, like, what kind of makes a good sci-fi book, and stuff like that. Interesting. All right, that would be exciting to read/listen when it's out.
So that was about the follow-up and the theme corner, which is
Right, the
basically
new
a
tradition.
checkpoint on yearly themes. There is a full episode that we usually record sometime around Christmas, and it describes in details our themes. And every 6 weeks there is a checkup, and today we are checking up on my themes. I think we could basically skip Triennial of Light and Year of Meaning because we discussed them in details previously, and we could focus on the seasonal themes because last time we were talking I was going into summer, and it was the summer of mindfulness, which is running down in August, and the next season is coming. So my
How's it
summer
going?
of mindfulness is semi-successful. I've managed to decrease my screen time, and I've got back some habits that I wanted in terms of mindfulness, like breathing activities and some guided meditations. Although I'm still not at the place where I'd like to be, and there are still many things that distract me, and the focus that I need to perform some of the difficult creative activities is not here. So I will partially transition some of the things that I was planning for summer to autumn. And I think that they will kind of evolve into the next one.
This is interesting, and I'm particularly interested about return of guided meditations and what kind of effects you feel about that. Like, how does this help you compare to where you were, let's say, like 2 months ago, something along those
Basically, it's
lines.
just like a reaction to a trigger that I forgot. Let's say previously I would get stressed and then I would either need to distract myself into some kind of media like social networks or procrastinate a little bit, or I would have to actually walk somewhere or swim or do something physically intense to switch my mind. And right now, if I come after a stressful meeting, for instance, or a difficult conversation, I can straight up put on my headphones, which are right now right behind me, and within 10 to 15 minutes, switch. I have a set of meditations at Calm and what's the other one by Andy that we tried, Mindspace, and they both help me to switch my mind.
Did you find guided meditation specifically helpful, or as opposed to, I guess, general meditating to a calm,
I
soothing sounds?
usually general meditations or just freestyle meditations work for me when I get back into the habit. But usually when I start, it's like basically a workout with a coach. You need some support and help, and these things they guide me through because when I'm in a hurry or stressed, my mind is really Russian. And if I set a guided meditation for 10 minutes, I know that it will be 10 minutes. I will not spend longer. I will not spend shorter. It would definitely be the amount of time I intend to meditate. And previously, I would use just some melodies for that. But my mind is very hectic these days, and guided meditations kind of settle it down.
Interesting, interesting. Because I sort of struggle a bit with guided meditations from the perspective I find it difficult to take them seriously. Why? So, all right, I'm sitting there with my headphones and stuff. Why would I do what some voice from my headphones tell me to do? Like, yeah, it's not clicking for me there. Specifically with guided stuff. Like, why do I want to follow the guides? But yeah, maybe I'll give it another try. And you also said that you not super you don't feel like you want to take this more and do more. Did you have any specific ideas in mind what you want to change or try more to be more mindful in addition to guided meditations and walks?
I think that one of the upsides of guided meditations is that I've done a lot and I've taken a number of courses. I've used the apps quite intensively. So I tried different types of techniques. And even if I didn't know, it would probably be easier. But now I know most of these techniques and approaches, and even without explanations, they kind of work, especially at some basic levels, like the body scan, the breathing, the focus activities. They seem quite obvious.
I think I experienced a little bit of a technical challenge, and I maybe heard like in like 5 words in total out of what you said. So maybe I don't know what would you expect. How would you expect me to respond to that? I'll
No, no,
respond in
we can
very
just
well.
move on
Cut.
to the next season, the next part of the theme,
Right. Yeah.
which is going to
Let's.
be Fall of Nucleus or Autumn of
Interesting.
Nucleus.
What
And
what what does it mean?
nucleus basically means the most essential central thing, or something that is the very essential part of an activity. A little pre-story. I told you I struggle with focusing, and the reason I do that is because I'm currently involved in 12 different activities and projects,
Right.
which require my creative attention and some kind of engagement. And I intend to cut it to 5 in autumn, which means I would have to delegate or redesign some things so they would work without me or with different kind of engagement from my side. And it basically means I would have to prioritize them, and they all kind of seem important right now. So it would take some work to see what actually matters and what is the most essential thing.
This is super interesting because I think you may remember that previously, and I think in my previous seasonal thing, I was also doing something similar, trying to focus to reduce the amount of things I'm focusing on. And I think I got them from like relatively large number to a smaller number. But now I feel that no, I need to cut it even further to maybe like laser focus on one, even two things at most. And I would be very curious to hear about your journey, and I wonder if maybe we can partner a little bit to be a support group for one another in this regard. Do you have any specific things or techniques or approaches that you want to take to make this happen?
Well, since I mostly have the analytical mindset, I start with reviewing my previous engagement. I look through my task list, my calendar, I calculate stuff and see how much time I spent doing things. And then I top that up with my emotional engagement, like which things I find the most stressful, which things I find the most useful, which things I just enjoy doing more. And then later I will probably move on to the impact and why I was engaged in all of these activities, trying to reconnect with past self and see the reason why I agreed to do that at the first place. And when I have all that on one page, I would be able to prioritize and build the map, because most of the projects you can't just quit. You have to build up some infrastructure or find people or train people or do a number of steps. And these steps are an extra activity apart from what I'm doing these days. So it's basically another investment. And before I do it, I would have to be sure that I focus on the right things.
I think that's a great thing. I'll be very curious to hear the next update on this topic in
Yeah, currently I'm at the
6
stage
weeks
where
or
I
so.
have just a list of projects, and I'm going to fill in this table within the next few weeks.
I have a meta question, not specifically related to your themes, but I think you said, oh, we are doing this theme corner as a checkup. But checkup is a little bit of a medical or clinical term, isn't it?
Isn't it what it is? Like, we would like to see how
No.
things are going, whether our themes are on track, and basically like a medical exam, but a theme exam.
But I think to me the difference would be with checkup, you go in to determine if there is anything wrong. But this is
Why?
not at all how I feel about
Not
themes,
definitely.
right? We
Like,
say that themes cannot go wrong. Well,
it's not about going wrong. It's just about how it's going. Because let me give you an example. I've been on a diet for a month, and when I first came to our diet specialist or therapist, they asked us to take some blood tests to check the
sure.
vitamins and some other things. And I'm going to take this test once again, but what I expect to see is the improvement there. It's not that
Right.
something is bad or going wrong. Basically, I've been taking vitamins for about a month, and the next time I come for this exam, it's a checkup to see if I have improved. It's not a checkup to see if I have gotten worse. So I think it's a relative term. The connotation could really be different.
So it is a positive checkup. Checkup with a positive spin.
Let's change it to the checkpoint if it works better.
Half joking there. All right, cool. Thanks for sharing this with me and with all of us, the listeners there. Should we jump into the topic? And the topic says Savvy is launching EdTech community. Tell me more about that.
Well, you probably know that I'm a fan of communities at different levels. Back
Yes,
in
I noticed
DPRO,
that.
I participated in a number of communities and I created a community of my own. I've been around different clubs and communities, Aspen, SEO Club, L&D community, for quite a while. I do believe that this kind of interaction brings in something that people can't get individually when you collaborate, and probably it would be a bit cringy, but populistic, but I would say about synergy, this 1 + 1 = 3 that we've discussed some years ago, I believe. But this is what I see at the example of L&D community. A group of volunteers, let's say 4 volunteers, who don't have enough time to run a full project, come together and build up a library of resources. None of them would have done it, but when they spend 20% of their time doing that, they basically chip in and build a project that would never come to life unless somebody would just pay for it and it would become a commercial thing and somebody would have a salary to build it up. But most of the things that are needed are not created because it's a job. They're created because it's a need. or because there is vacuum of something, and maybe there is no business operating in this domain that could cover these needs just yet. And the same works for SEO Club, for Aspen, like they cover different sort of needs, and then people keep engaging and communicating because they get something from these transactions. As Savvy is basically transitioning from offline to online to EdTech products, like we started as an offline training company. With COVID, we transitioned to mostly remote, but still synchronous and instruction-led training. And we are currently working on integrating way more remote, pre-recorded and prepared materials into our programs. I kind of start learning from different tech platforms, speaking of just direct things like learning management systems, platforms like Projector, Prometheus, Coursera, edX, and something along those lines. And I can see that people have very different level of experience, expertise there. They build different systems. And since I'm going into that area and my business is going to be there in like 3 to 5 years, definitely, like the margin of our product is going to move to EdTech within the next few years quite seriously. I started looking for a place where I could talk to industry experts and where I could meet these people. And my first Google search showed me a few EdTech communities in Ukraine. Most of them appeared to be dead. There was an e-learning club, which, surprise, surprise, stopped activities during COVID. And then there were a few these marketing initiatives by a company that say like we are launching something, and then no news and no updates and nothing. And when I asked people in the industry, like, guys, where do you actually talk to someone else? Where do you meet instructional designers? Where do you meet content creators? Where do you talk to software developers who work at different tech projects? And there is quite a list of Ukrainian businesses that work in this industry. I basically got an answer nowhere. And our suggestion is to get these people together and see how we can work together.
That's very interesting. I have so many questions about this. The first one would be, how would you define ed tech, and to that extent, what kind of tech you would consider?
I would say it's a type of technology related to learning or education, which is basically switched into or split into 3 different categories. It's software that we use for learning, and that could really be different from learning platforms to specific mobile apps, or something you would have to install to improve something, some kind of skills. And it could work very differently. Even spell checkers are considered EdTech these days because they are intended to improve or teach you write better. I think it's not fair, but like in my definition, it's something that improves your skills, like basically any kind of software that makes you better at doing something, teaches you doing something.
So would it be fair to say here that there will be software that was intentionally created with the purpose of improving educational
skills,
outcomes, or like
yep.
skills and stuff? Okay. So that's the software part. You said there are 2 more.
And I mean that should be the primary focus, because some things, they have the educational aspect as part of something else, like an app that gets you on a diet, but there is a little educational tip section there. I wouldn't consider it as EdTech. That's healthcare software. And if it's an guide that basically provides explanations where you can take some tests, where you can improve your knowledge of, I don't know, different sorts of nutrition, that would qualify as EdTech in terms of software. Then there is hardware, basic things like interfaces, digital boards, things that are created for the classrooms, or different sorts of experience, even related to VR or AR, where people learn to do some things like simulators for surgeons, for aviation, for different kind of complicated stuff, and something more casual where you can get a set for getting, I don't know, driving experience.
Where would you draw the boundary there between something that is ed tech hardware versus non-ed tech hardware? Because we do have, let's say, on the extreme end, like pencils and notebooks designed specifically to be used in the classroom. Well, they're not too different from other notebooks and pencils, mind you, but nonetheless, they're labeled like the school of clown, something like that. So is this ed tech hardware?
No, I would say that hardware section is probably the least represented out there, and that would be things that again are intentionally designed for educators and improving skills. Like your smartwatch is not designed to improve your skills. You can use it to design your to improve some of your skills and use some education activities on it, but basically it's not its first purpose. If you're talking about this digital board or things that make classrooms more effective, these kind of things, plus the ebooks, which are designed for learning, where you can interact with the text in multiple different ways, not just read. But I would say that most e-readers are kind of a tech for me.
I think probably like one of the things you mentioned, probably the like flight simulator or aircraft simulator would be the prime example of the ed techest tech that could be there.
Yeah, definitely. And then the third section here would be content, like people who actually design things remotely and create online learning experiences. And here I'm talking not just about courses, but about various type of content that is aimed to improve skills. And it could live in social media, it could live on specific platforms, it could live in mobile apps, it could live elsewhere. Moreover, most businesses, they try to combine two of three areas, and they would say like that would be content plus software or software plus hardware. Usually businesses are not single focused there. There are some that only design LMS and don't provide any content, but most businesses that we know, they try to do both. Like Coursera, for instance, they do both software as a platform and content as course creators.
Yeah, that categorization makes a lot of sense to me because I got you linked to this state ed tech trends report to our notes, and I think it is almost entirely orthogonal to what you just described, and I got confused. But what ed tech is this ed tech? No, because there they just mostly talk about like funding an administrative kind of angle of running state educational facilities, which I think is very different from what you just described.
Oh, I was talking about the industry, which goes not just in state, but it's also private sector. The private sector is way bigger than state. It's just one of the reports that I thought might be interesting, but I'm sorry, it discombobulated you.
Yeah, that, that definitely happened there. And then the other question: why do you feel there is a need for community there, and what community could do that none of the individual players could do on their own or through kind of normal market forces where people would
Well,
need to
first of all, I think
collaborate,
that
partner, and so on.
communities and associations are normal market forces. Like there is a certain stage when an industry starts collaborating and builds the community. So it is just a stage of evolution that happens sometime. There are a few answers to that. The first one is that I think that one of the smartest way to operate in any tech business is learning from previous experiences. Like before you start building another LMS or any kind of system, you probably research what other people are doing on the market. You see what is there, how is it working, what are the ups, what are the downs of existing solutions, and then you start building something or improving your solution. The second thing is that many projects that we need in Ukraine these days, they require a collaboration of things. Let's say we decide to help high school education. Like our kids missed a lot for the past 4 years because of COVID and war. And our government is not really capable of catching up with all the educational losses that happened there. And in order to catch up, you would probably need a number of teachers and content creators, a number of methodologists, and a platform to put it all together to create something useful that could help these learners cover those needs and prepare for final exams, for instance. Or alternatively, there are a lot of people who are retraining because they move from sector to sector. Some industries are struggling, and this retraining can't always be happening offline because people just can't afford move to the places where it's happening, or it's not safe, or like quite a number of reasons.
Sure.
And in order to create that, again, the government can't cover up all the needs. And there are some specific business courses like Projector or something else in Ukraine that does give you some basic skills, but it's usually longer than needed. And people who hire are usually not engaged in the course development there. So what we could potentially do, we see that we lack electricians, for instance, and there is a number of unemployed people. There could be an e-learning solution that could engage people from electrician industry, instructional designers, and a platform that would put it all together and let people get their jobs. And it requires collaboration and trust between different stakeholders. Like there should be trust between the expert who designs things, people who provide the platform, and people who bring the content. And right now, Ukraine is trying to facilitate, as a country, as government, is trying to facilitate these kind of collaborations, but doesn't seem to be very effective. Like they run some government programs. One of the latest ones was language learning initiative that they've created, an online platform. But since the level of trust of Ukrainians to the government has dropped quite a lot, and the digital literacy is also quite low, the solutions that the government creates there are not that effective. Like you can't teach Ukrainians English in a year, and then they just close it because there is lack of budget and they can't move on, and it's not consistent. If it's funded and created by the community, it has chances of being constantly improving, more flexible, getting various types of funding and developments there. I think it could definitely cover the needs of the country, get all these players an opportunity to present their solution and show how e-learning could actually work, that it's not just a straightforward lecture test type of activity. And we could bring better learning experience. Some people could get recognition, some people could get actual rewards there, some people could show it as their corporate social responsibility because they care about Ukrainians. And moreover, they could get an experience of working with someone else, like with different type of instructional designer, with different types of content creators, with different types of systems that they can't get in the system where they work currently. As an example, if it's Adera, which is an LMS system plus content creators, they engage into the project and they work with some other instructional designers. It's a new look at the methodology that they don't have inside their team that they could learn from and then later integrate into their own workflow. So quite a number of benefits that people could get from there.
How do you think those benefits could be realized? And then what are the challenges on the path towards realizing those benefits?
Oh, quite a list.
Because I think while I think that's such a passive aggressive phrase, right? Would be to say like, I hear what you're saying, but I think I think I understand the motivation there. That of course that there are market forces, and in the long term, probably market can and should be able to fix this, but that's the long term, and some of the things we need to get quote unquote fixed or realized sooner than we perceive market will be able to address them, and we are looking for ways to make this happen. But as I think you alluded to a little bit, it doesn't come without challenges, and to me it feels like challenges can be very multiple there.
I agree. And I think that one of the first ones is to build trust, that people can actually work together, to get people acquainted enough so they would not feel the competition, but they would feel the collaboration spirit instead. And that's quite challenging because many of these people are direct competitors. Like if we invite people who provide learning management system software, they usually do it for quite the same set of clients. And they would probably feel cautious about working together and sharing their approaches and what they can currently do. At the same time, most of these providers of learning management systems have their social responsibility. As an example, Collaborator provides their LMS system to some state institutions. Workademy says, "What if you have a social initiative and you need an LMS, just come to us, we'll do that." EdEra is built on social initiatives because they basically get grant funds from various institutions, and they provide learning solutions for teachers, for learners, for professionals in different areas, and put them together on their learning management system. Moreover, EdEra is part of this expertise improvement postgraduate something on the state level already. So people get credits, the public service employees, then they get credits from completing courses there. And I believe that these three, first of all, some of them know each other, some of them are even relatives, but in order to work together effectively, they probably should talk more. And this is one of the challenges, because since there is no platform for dialogue, there is no room where you can come and talk and discuss the challenges and talk about things that you see on the market, the current trends and the difficulties you have. You can't really see the full picture. You just see your own little segment. So lack of trust, lack of the place where you can talk openly and share things and hear things and get some insights. The level of complexity of projects, because most things I described are quite big things and they require specific management and commitment. It's not a very easy thing to do that you could launch in 2 weeks. Usually it requires some preparation, planning, engagement, commitment, and a number of other risks in process. And probably the last one is that they quite often engaged the government, and many businesses, they try to stay away from state-related programs for a number of reasons. And I would say that these are the main blockers that we could face, or the main risks where things could go wrong. And then there is a number of ifs, what ifs that could happen in the process, but you never know before you try.
It's hard to argue with that. Of course, it's better to try and learn and see how things unfold in real life. But I agree that there are, it almost kind of on an abstract level feels a little bit like, let's say, if there is kind of an ocean or a river, and I would, this is going to be slightly abstract, and there is a natural flow of things, and we want to change that flow, and so we start instituting some sort of interventions to pull things in a particular direction. Quite often it can be that when there can be basically unexpected or unintended effects and consequences of the actions that we do, even if those actions are well intentioned, because we do not fully understand the full all of the different things that go on in the natural flow of things and how those things are going to interact with how we intervene. And of course, this is an argument in favor of let's try and see, and let's see what we can learn from this thing. But I also feel like at some point there can be enough of an uncertainty about the thing that would warrant maybe more cautious approach, if you know what I'm trying to say. Like instead of going all in, or like we are going to create a huge community or build an entire bridge, what if we do try to do this particular specific projects with community, or as if there was a community, see how it goes, and then see how we can learn from it and turn it into something bigger, like a full-fledged community.
That's exactly why we are going to take a few iterations. And the first one was to invite some people we know from EdTech and pitch this idea to them. We sold it to 100% of people we knew, and they said, yeah, that sounds interesting, we would be part of it. So we moved to the next iteration. This is where we are right now, where we are inviting a larger group of people, and the outcome of this meeting is going to be a map of Ukrainian-related EdTech, like all people, institutions, and companies that are somehow related to EdTech should get on one page. Like we would be able to show like these are all learning management systems that have Ukrainian teams designing them. These are other software solutions that have some kind of Ukrainian root or R&D offices or something along those lines. These are instructional designers that we know that are have the most trust on the market, and basically it would be an industry map, which by itself is quite a useful thing because people are constantly in search of something, of an instructional designer or content maker or an LMS system, and if you can just show them like, guys, this is what we have Ukrainian made, that could be a useful thing by itself. But also it's going to be an opportunity to talk about a potential collaboration and see if these people are interested. Like we could communicate along with this that we are going to launch a few pilot projects and see how it goes. We already have a few people on board who have some ideas what they would like to do, but they could use some help. And they could present these ideas where Savvy could be a facilitator. That's stage 3, basically running a few project groups that would take different difficulty of the projects and go for a sprint for 2-3 months to see how they can perform together, whether they can show some progress there. And in the meanwhile, we could also do some intermediate peer-to-peer events where people would come and exchange their thoughts on, I don't know, methodology. Quite a neutral topic, not very competitive, nothing special, or like different latest research on how the brain works in education. Most people are interested, they care about it, they read different stuff around, and it could be an experience sharing that is not very competitive. And these things could be like in parallel, like a few projects running, plus some events to remind about us on the way. And if these are successful, like if we see the engagement of people to the events, if the projects can actually move and provide some value to the world, to people who are part of the project and the beneficiaries, then there would be next stage is scaling, building up this community to more projects, getting a program manager who would run multiple tracks and monitor the activities and build a system, how to communicate about that, how to plan it, how to get people engaged, how to disengage from these projects, etc. And all the infrastructure around it. And basically it's like the prerequisite for an association, but I'm not looking that far. So right now, I would say it could be an informal community with a number of events, a number of projects running, and probably a core team of people who care about it and would like to contribute more and do more than just business.
Interesting. Two points I wanted to make. One is actually an earlier point. I was while you were speaking, I was thinking, how is there a way to combine the words collaboration and competition into one word, something like collaboration or
Competition.
competition? Yeah, competition is actually good. Is this what you're looking for? Kind of entities who are naturally averse to doing something together to get them to do something together for greater good or for shared good?
It's more like joining forces because most of these people, they do something good, but they have limited resources to do that. And when they chip in their resources, they can do greater things that they wouldn't be able because they didn't have enough resources themselves. But if they, like a few players chip in, they can make a bigger thing and their contribution remains the same that they would do anyway. Like they would give away, I don't know, some amount of users or server space or support or content or something else. But usually it was having limited impact. And if you would like to make something bigger while giving the same amount of contribution, this is where collaboration seems the most useful.
This is fair. I think that this is also interesting, but before that, I wanted to return to my other point where you said that you talked to a whole bunch of potential collaborators on this initiative, and all 100% of them liked and kind of bought the idea and wanted to participate. Isn't this like to put my devil's advocate hat on? Isn't this a little bit suspicious that we get 100% participation? What
No, it's not
if
because it's 7 people who know me and they know my experience in community development.
okay?
So Chances are they're more optimistic just because of a subjective.
All right. Okay. So what they wanted to lead. Like, what would be the counterfactual? Like, what would be the reasons for people not to join or to say no? Like, we want to do
Many
our
people
own
will
thing.
not join, and I'm fine with that. As long as we see, like, we don't need multiple learning management systems. We just need 2 active players with their LMS to run projects. Like that would be enough. We don't need 20 instructional designers. We just basically need 5. We don't need a lot of content creators. We just need people engaged in projects where they see the value. It could even be business, like an electrician company that I mentioned previously. Like they're actually interested in getting people hired, so they could provide some expert content to the platform and instructional designers in the format that we request to get some potential hires, right? And these kind of things don't require full buy-in from the industry. Moreover, this is what happened at L&D community at the first days. Like when we launched it, many people were very doubtful that it's going to work, or they expected that we will add some kind of monetization or fee or something to the membership later on, which we didn't, by the way. And right now, even people who were not believing in the value that L&D community can create, right now attend our courses, use our products, come and fill in our databases we create, join our events, etc. So I think that building trust with a wider range of people is the matter of time. But for the first initial stage, having the core team that believes in it and feels ready to contribute should be fine, should be enough.
Interesting. With my devil's advocate hat still on, I think what you initially described with, oh, we want to get a little bit of here, like L&D system from here, content creators from there, something from there. That doesn't sound too different from a regular venture like enterprise where you have an idea that you might do X, you need resources X, Y, Z to do that. And why would this not be a viable approach in this case? Like to raise some funds, get some L&D system capacity from just any vendor, partner or collaborate with a couple of content
Because we are not
creators.
talking about business ideas or business needs. We are talking about impact projects, some things that work on social level. And right now, the only stakeholder there is Ukrainian government. Ukrainian government, as we probably see, is not very effective in terms of e-learning. Like things they've created are shiny, but they don't know how to measure the impact of the things. They don't know how to assess the results. They basically rely on final tests. Like we do something and then we just hope that things happen. Most of the universities these days, they provided a number of e-learning tools to professors. But there are single universities, like up to 10 all over Ukraine, that actually learned how to use that after 4 years, which illustrates that in this domain, there is no business. Like it's the sector of public interest, not private interest. And the providers I'm talking about will not be able to get benefit directly. Like it's not going to be income or a paid service that they create at first, but it's going to benefit the entire industry and their reputation and an opportunity for them to get commercial opportunities, but in other areas and segments. It's not a direct value for money thing, because what you described as a venture thing is when you find a business idea and you get money somewhere to check it. But if you see a social need, and most money there is either state-owned or some kind of aid programs from foreign donors or other governments that could potentially support it. There is still money in this sector. This money is distributed very differently, and the way teams are shaped is also a bit different from the private sector.
What do you think would make it, this initiative, different from what you said the government is falling short of, or with not checking and not following through, and then kind of terminating funding for those initiatives? I don't really see how community would be better in this
Well, let's
intentions,
start with project planning. Like people who design e-learning solutions,
right?
they know how to measure the impact of their solutions. way better
Okay.
than the deputy of minister, or like most of e-learning stuff for Ukrainian government is something totally new. Like they never knew how it works. And there are experts and professionals who design it every day, who improve it, who work on the edge of this industry. So they could definitely see the outcomes or predict the outcomes of their activity way more effectively than the state authority. I'll give you another example. The state programs to develop entrepreneurship, and then the private or business schools that work in private sector and they develop entrepreneurship and management skills.
Right.
The efficiency of the state programs, state education, like management faculty,
Right.
5 years, you spend 5 years learning management and then you're incapable to manage a project at the end. This is an example of a state paid education product. Right now it's even multiplied to e-learning thing. So you don't even get to come to campus. Like you have to remotely stay in Zoom and listen to a number of lectures that you can never apply to real life. Most managerial courses in the private sector are 2 to 6 months long, and they provide essential skills, tools, platforms that are up to date. They're way more flexible in terms of their program. They collect immediate feedback. They invite hosts from actual businesses way more often than private businesses. Moreover, some of them even provide employment opportunities afterwards. They suggest like what kind of things you could do. They are way better with technology. Like they have better equipment, they invest in software, and they create content that is long-lasting, and they invite methodologies that work there. So on the example of management education programs, but you could remove the word management and put pretty much anything else, except for some hardcore things like medical or pilots or some things that do require government observation and standards, like licensing, basically. If there is no license in there, the private sector usually does it more flexibly.
I'm relatively far removed from this kind of thing, like management and managerial education these days. But back in the day when I was still in Ukraine and somehow connected to this, to be honest, I wouldn't say that I would trust more. I would trust a graduate of 6 month industry-led course more than someone who got 5 year degree from state kind of
Yeah, but
educational facility. I would
statistics,
equally distrust them.
your critical thinking is not the measure of efficiency. The true question here would be if a project manager comes to you with knowledge and understanding of tools that you use, or with theoretical concepts and philosophical, humanitarian, and some other background. These people probably have both state and private education. But this is not the point of what I'm saying. It was just an example. The main idea is that state-owned projects are not flexible and they don't care about efficiency. Business usually cares about the efficiency of things where they invest their time and money. They would like to see the return on their investment. This is the general mindset. Like government doesn't usually care about the return of their investment. The worst thing that happens is that somebody gets demoted or moved to a different department if the project they ran is ineffective. In business, you actually suffer from such mistakes. You can lose a career. There are multiple consequences if something is ineffective. You can even lose your business.
I think as it applies to educational services providers, I'm not sure if I see that much of difference, because that not to say like there is definitely a difference, but I'm not super convinced that this business thing applies here. If I got it as a business, I got my money for providing you this 6 month educational course on
Let me give you
something.
another example just to highlight
Right.
the difference. Let's not take universities, let's take a college. These people are aiming to train drivers, electricians, designers, these kind of jobs. And then there is Projector, which is a commercial private thing, which is basically an analog of this. And they say, this is a number of skills. You don't get a certificate or a diploma, but you get all the necessary skills that you didn't get wherever you. The difference in approach from a college that teaches you design and a set of Projector courses related to design is that you learn from people who actually work in some specific companies. You don't learn from professors who haven't been in business for decades. These people are usually doing this job simultaneously with teaching. Like they do it in parallel. They
Sure.
teach in projector and they work somewhere as design leads, and they know what are the current requirements. They know how things are done today. Moreover, the total duration of a college program is a year and a half to 2 years to get full things, including Ukrainian business language course, philosophy and ethics, and a number of other things that are just demanded by the government because it's part of the license that everybody has to take this Ukrainian
Sure.
something course, while projector focuses on the specific skills. And if the person needs Ukrainian skills, we'll just go and get it from another provider. But usually employers don't check these kind of things, especially when they hire a designer or someone with a very specific skill set to do a specific job. They require this person to do this job well. This is the main criteria. And the institution that provides skills and tools to do the job better gets the better reputation. So today, yes, not all courses out there provide high quality, but on average, if you take people who just learned in the state designed programs and in private design programs, the private design programs show more efficiency because they are more up to date, they're flexible, they care about feedback from the learners, and they talk to the employers who, if they get hired after these courses, it's another marketing thing for this course to get more and more people. So they are in the constant dialogue, like, what do you need? Here's the list of our top graduates. They are constantly checking up with what they're doing, whether what they're doing is needed or not. While colleges, they don't have this requirement. They have a standard that was written X years ago, and the way to update it, like you would have to go to the Ministry of Education, apply something, and then wait for 6 months, and then maybe something happens. And then when it happens, you would still have to teach your staff to do that. It's a very complicated system. I'm really motivated by the way it's going to change if our minister stays where he's going to stay, and if the programs that they launched are going to be completed. But as by now, like if I would have to hire, let's say, a driver, I would definitely trust the private certificates, and I could check the statistics, like what happens from colleges provided personally from private sector and from public sector.
And with kind of circling back to the community and the activities and stuff that you plan in foreseeable future, what are the first milestones or results that you are aiming to hit there?
Currently, our next plan is to run this brainstorming session in August, invite people who would like to participate, and get from them the ideas and suggestions what could be the projects. Because if we suggest the projects, it probably won't be perceived as well as if we talk to people. So we are not coming with some kind of drafts or pre-prepared solutions.
Yeah, for sure. That always works better. More power to people. So
yeah, that's participant-centered approach.
Right. So then, in a sense, the first milestone would be to generate an idea for a project that everyone would be excited about and would be willing to
not necessarily
contribute.
Everyone. It could be a number of projects, and some people could be excited about some of them. And if we get teams formed around these ideas, that would be the outcome. If it's like, I don't know, 3 projects, then we're totally fine.
This is super interesting. Is there anything else or anything specifically that, not to say bothers you, but rather kind of keeps you up at night when you think about this initiative?
It's just a general feeling that I feel that Ukrainians could benefit more from getting more practice of uniting around a project that is not ours. We tend to initiate a number of things, but the idea of joining someone's initiative is not that common. And the opportunity or possibility of the fact that we can create a spot where people will get positive experience of joining someone's initiative and making something great in their professional domain. I mean, not just like a social fund or some kind of volunteering project, is like a bridge to bigger layer, the layer of finding consensus and talking about complicated things and joining forces to create something that couldn't be created by a single business.
Makes a lot of sense. And I think one of the questions I had overall, kind of once again on a more philosophical sort of level, looking at any industry or EdTech industry, kind of for a specific example, we can say that there is a category of people, like people who work in EdTech industry as opposed to people who are not working there. But that categorization is not sufficient for that to be a community, right? Or at least in my estimate.
I would
How
say it's people who have the common interest around something and they benefit from the interaction with each other. If it's a reading club, a book club, it could be a community if people are interested in reading and they get something from these sessions. As long as someone stops getting the benefits from the activity, this person gets excommunicated. But there is always someone who could join in, and these communities could grow exponentially.
excommunicated sounds a little bit too harsh. Yeah, I guess I agree that that was kind of my last question there. What would make what makes a community? And you said that this is this sense of getting, well, both being able to give something and also getting something that would also only be possible in interaction with other people, with other members of the community.
Yeah, moreover, this something could change at different stages of the community. Looking at the example of L&D community, some people come for recognition and then they stay for just acceptance and friendship, and some they feel the need to support others, and the recognition gets less important at a certain moment. But then there are vice versa situations, people who come just to join and be part of something, and then they see that they can get recognition. Or just two examples, like there is a number of motivators. Some people got hired from L&D community, some people improved their networking, some people created something with their own hands that they could see, because at their actual job they couldn't see the outcomes of their activity because they were doing just a little part of the process, and here they can make a pet project from scratch and to the release. And quite a number of motivations that could bring the person in the community, make the person stay in the community, and then force the person leave the community or quit the community, which is okay. Like, I don't think that people should stay for longer than they need it. As an example of L&D, out of 8 people who founded it, only 2 people are staying right now, and there are 18 people in the boosters team, and then there are dozens of people around it who also contribute and help. And these people are constantly changing, their needs are constantly changing. It's a very complicated and open system, and it works only because it's complicated and open, and people can come and leave whenever they'd like.
And it's only healthy for community as an organism to have this sort of dynamic. I do agree. And I think it is super interesting. You already said that there is this 1+1=3 aspect of a community. And I think in general, it is a very interesting phenomenon how something bigger can emerge on top of kind of smaller, more individual things. And it also feels like this is something that each of us would be able to pinpoint when we see it. All right, yeah, this have a community happen there or something along those lines, like productive collaboration or whatever. But then deconstructing exactly or precisely how that happened is difficult, and reproducing that effect is even more difficult again on the extreme level. So kudos to you for having these ideas and trying them out and trying to create that magic that makes 1+1=3.
And I thank you for the questions, because I tend to fall in love with ideas and lose the critical thinking approach to working with them, and answering your questions was helpful to reconsider some of the aspects of this. idea.
Thank you for sharing your ideas with us. I do feel more of a community with you and our listeners, that we get to discuss things that are not maybe kind of universally true, but we try to get them better and understand them better. It means a lot.
Well, our next episode is going to be on your side, and we're going to follow the same logic of possible follow-ups, theme corner, and then the topic you bring in.
Sure.
I'm already looking forward to that.
And
So
until
have some good
then,
weeks.
good weeks.